we had after that, with what your expectations are with the license and all that. So
Cool. Okay, we're on.
all right, cool bananas. All right, so in terms of the actual GitHub project repository, there doesn't seem like there's a whole lot there in terms of like documentation and whatnot. So you're just kind of focusing on the core code at the moment, right?
Yeah. So I'm not anti-spec, and I agree that we need one. We have tried many times throughout the years to make one.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, you see the problems we're having just with trying to get this license defined, and we're having debates and questions about sort of the very fundamentals of the whole thing. But with the code, it's sort of like even worse. So generally, the idea was we'll make it, get it working. Seemed faster than trying to design it in our heads and then go to make it, and then having to go back and redo what the spec was as we learned more about what the code should be or what the thing should be. But I do believe we can make a spec for the Dreamcatcher, and that's sort of what the the dictionary was designed to be the start of. The code is stabilizing. I think the design of it currently is sufficient to take it through to the scale and variant nature that it needs to support the fully fledged Dreamcatcher.
All right, and so what sort of release level are you at? Do you feel right now with it?
It starts with a 0. I'd say I'm at,
I would expect nothing less.
but it's 0.1 point some numbers. So
Okay.
There's an API that's been reasonably stable.
Okay.
And that's about it.
All right. Okay. And so I read the dictionary, and forgive me, but I don't think the dictionary reads like a specification at all.
No,
I think the dictionary reads like it's a book, a collection of terms to help facilitate understanding of what's going on inside.
Yeah, and all throughout the dictionary, you can see signs of a struggle.
Yep, definitely. Just a word on the dictionary. I still think some of the terms that we're using are a bit loaded, so we may want to.
They absolutely are.
Yep.
We don't have we just need to get going. Me and Scott need to just get going with the design work. We're very happy to rename terms arbitrarily later. We just needed something to grab hold of because it's weird. It's all weird.
Yeah, I can understand the and appreciate the constraints you're under. So don't think I don't.
Okay.
I know I'm coming in and just kind of mucking around in your sandbox and starting to throw
totally
shit
fine.
everywhere.
I welcome that.
But yeah, I know. But I just want you to know that it comes from a place of love and respect. So I'm thinking to myself, how do we adopt this to other people and let them adapt to it as fast as possible?
Yep.
And sort of get into it as if they're just like, just using like any other blockchain, and they just have no trouble understanding. As long as you have a certain fundamental understanding of blockchain technology, or crypto, you should be able to pick this up without any problems. And I'm just trying to avoid unnecessary obfuscation and consternations and people going, oh, I don't know, man, this sounds like a cult. That kind. I'm just trying to get away from that. I don't want to be XRP or Cardano.
No one wants to be those guys.
Yeah, so I don't want people to go in there and go, oh, well, you guys are just you guys are relying on this or that or X or Y and B. It's like, no, we're not relying on anything. We're relying on a community decentralized philosophy. That's what we're relying on. That's it.
Yep.
So yeah, I've kind of been trying to So what I've been doing with my notes is, as I come online to all this stuff, I'm trying to describe some of these things, terms and concepts you guys are doing into language I understand, and hopefully that'll make it easier for other people who come behind us to understand. So I'm just trying to be the Rosetta Stone, if you will, between you and Scott and the general public.
Yeah, cool.
Because I think that's where I fit in most, and I think the reason why Scott and I are being fairly pedantic with the license, if you will, is that I think if we're just a little bit more pedantic about it now, it'll save a lot of money with the lawyers.
Oh, look, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we're almost at the finish line. I think it's just going to be like another 3 or 4 more sessions for us to get through the whole thing. But I mean, as long as we get to the point where other lawyers can't weasel out of certain things, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, and my attitude is like, version 1, fuck it, just fucking see what happens. The losses will be, minimal, well contained, and the affected users will be a handful. So,
well, I'm not talking about those losses. I agree with you with those losses. You're talking about mainnet playing around, getting it up and running. Those losses, I can care less.
Right.
The real world losses I'm worried about are actual legal time and effort by an outside consultant to actually look through this, and we have to pay them to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So I mean, if we can nail down most of that stuff so that the changes are minimal and the revisions are negligible, then even better.
Yep.
Because right now our time is fairly free. So.
It's actually very expensive because we're losing operational time. Every extra day we take to make this thing is a day of running that we could be having.
Right. Well, how close are you to this being live? Let's say today was the day that we all signed the DPL and the lawyers looked at it and everything else is great. I mean, would this even be ready for prime time?
By December, I would say you could start to use it to the point where we could be able to raise capital to audit test it, stability test it, that kind of thing.
Okay. And when you say raise capital, what in your mind does that mean by raise capital? Because this wouldn't be your standard venture capital type raise. It's like, or even ICO or any other. So what?
So the initial round would be people within our circle of trust that want to put into this thing, and but the thing that we're standing by is that we're trying to make a novel model of equity distribution, and the only type of raise that we'll tolerate is one that follows that model and uses that money to build out that model. So that's
correct.
Yep.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just talking about the nuts and bolts, and I'm like saying, so I'm kind of presenting a scenario here. I am McMillionaire, and I'm showing up with $1,000,000 that I want to put into Dreamcatcher. And I don't know shit about code. I don't care about the blockchain. I just think this is a pretty cool idea. Where do I put my funds?
If you're a complete stranger, probably the safest thing to do is for us to start a company and issue you shares in that company, and then that company spends its money to build code that it earns royalties from the attribution system.
Okay, so that sounds like a SPAC. So,
or just a private company. I mean, if you're an accredited investor, it's just it's just a standard
right.
little thing. The way for people who do know what's going on and do have trust in us and the system is to pay someone directly to do work on the code and get attributed for having done that and earn future royalties from that. So is that a security? We probably should err on the side of caution. So you'd need to be in the class of either friends and family or accredited investor for us to tolerate managing your money in that way.
Right. And that's basically that's the argument I was making too, is that if we if we say I'm taking your money and there's an expectation of profit or ROI, then we're talking shares.
Yeah, we're talking securities laws. Yeah, and like I absolutely do not want to conflate equity and currency here. I think that that's a poison within the cryptocurrency world. It is a scam. It shouldn't be done. So the currency that we're going to launch needs to be pure. There's no expectation of profit from the currency. It's not a share under any. We don't get to draw on any of the capital that is exchanged for those tokens at all.
Right. So what we're saying is that you may invest in this company, and there might be a side company with shares in it that you're entitled to, but you are not entitled to any sort of currency that's on the blockchain.
No.
That's running or fueling the resource value of the utility.
Absolutely not. Yeah. The only when you go to purchase this currency, it will be available in unlimited supply, and you will purchase it from an automated market maker, and you'll be able to sell it back to that automated market maker too. There's no skim in it for us. There's no self-issued tokens. It is pure currency, pure utility. The actual equity or the speculative interests in this platform will be marked as such, and that is the NFT-like embodiment of the contributions that are made in various forms and the royalties that get paid to them every time there's any kind of currency transaction or any time there's some sales of software. Those royalty attributions are the profit that speculators would make. I think those are securities, and I think that we should follow securities law strictly, because I actually believe wholeheartedly in the spirit of the SEC, which is don't allow innocent people or naive people to lose their money to the Wolf of Wall Street.
Well, you mean I call them the rent seekers, but yeah,
like the pump and dump merchants, all that kind of thing. Like, we want to declare our securities are actual securities. You're taking a risk; it might not work. We can promise you that we'll be as honest and earnest as we can, and we'll provide our credentials and identities so that you can actually have some comeback if we misbehave with your funds. But that's totally separate from the currency itself.
Right. Okay. And the currency is not a stable coin, right?
The currency is it is stabilized in it's pegged. It starts off pegged to something. I just nominated DAI as one. You said make it a combined index. Fine. But it's actually intended to be long-term pegged to the cost of performing a standard computational unit.
Right.
That cost is actually remarkably stable, and long-term it goes down. And so to combat that, the automated market maker will slowly increase the price that it buys at, or that it sells or issues currency at, as a function of the long-term overall throughput of the system. So the more money is being spent to purchase computational resources, the automated market maker will uptick in proportion to that, to try and give it a valuation of roughly sort of 10 times revenue type of thing.
Right, and that's the long-term vision of the stable currency that's in there, and we're calling it a stable currency, not a stable coin, because we're only backing it by some sort of basket of other things to start with, and then we'll deleverage into a unit of value work as
absolutely. It will deleverage over time to represent the cost of computation, and we feel like it's fair to include a gradual uptick that is anchored against the growth of the utility of it.
So I mean, I'm just gonna make a mental note here, because I'll probably re-listen to this. So that I'm just gonna say that this is probably part of the roadmap.
Yeah.
So this is probably something we have to probably illustrate in our roadmap that, hey, that this is only a temporary thing, and that long term, maybe a few months or a couple of years from now, we're going to be switching. The mainnet will switch from, recognizing this as like a basket of assets to being a specific asset on the mainnet, which is a work unit.
A work unit for a joule, where a joule is a standard unit that we arbitrarily define as being a particular practical unit of storage, networking, and computation.
Okay, so I mean, we're going to have with society the way it is. There's always hoarders. Humans hoard. Period. In the story. I mean, the more you hoard, the more you're celebrated in culture. Unfortunately, so what do we do about people who hoard the currency?
Nothing. We welcome them to do so. As you turn up and you purchase the currency, we'll just issue you more. Like, you could turn up and buy $1 billion worth of the currency, and we'll just issue it all, and the value of the currency will remain the exact same because you did nothing. It's only when it starts to be actually used or transacted to perform computational work, that's the only thing that's ever going to raise the value of that currency in any way whatsoever.
Well, I mean, in our eyes, but I mean, there's going to be a speculation regardless of what we can or can't control that.
But because we're an automated market maker with unlimited issuance, you can buy it and sell it at your leisure, and you will barely flutter the price. Whereas in a traditional token economy, you can spike the price or dump the price if you're a whale. Here, it has no effect on you.
Right. So if I'm a whale and I buy $1 billion worth of work unit and I'm just sitting on it and I sell it back, it's just going to eat the automatic market maker is just going to eat it and give me back $1 billion.
Yep, exactly. And you'd wonder why? Why would you do that? Welcome to do it as much as you like, but it's not going to change the value of that currency.
Okay. Some algo issues there, but I think they'll be able to get worked out in the mix when it's actually start doing testing and seeing how, if there's any sort of threat vector or threat surface for flooding the market on the automatic market maker. So
there's probably a bunch of holes in there somewhere. I believe that the overall concept can be made to work, where it's basically the only thing that makes the price go up is actual volume of usage. And it feels safe to do so because computational load around the world is fairly stable. And so once you get past the hobbyist stage and you've got actual, utility infrastructure running on this chain, the usage is fairly stable. And what it means is that you've got a guaranteed buyer of the currency in the people that are consuming that load, and that allows you to capture some of that guaranteed purchase price by upticking the AMM.
I mean, it sounds like the electric grid, where if there's a spike in demand, you do load shedding or whatnot, or in order to keep the electricity current stable at all times, regardless. Yep. So, I mean, that's where I'm getting an analogy from in my head. It's just an electric grid of currency flowing around in a circular loop.
So initially we'll be able to hold that price very steady right from launch, because we'll be drawing on AWS's pool of compute resources. So even if you hit us with a large amount of computational load, we can probably hold the price of compute stable because we're just absorbing it using Amazon's resources.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so that relies, like, kind of ties back to funding and expectations of return on investment. Obviously, we're going to need initial funding to keep the lights on and keep and pay for these servers, right?
Yeah.
And in long term, would the automatic market maker take some sort of small cut, like a tiny, like 0.001% slice of each transaction in order to pay for the lights, or keep the servers running?
No, that's what. So the automated market maker exists in the middle of a two-sided marketplace. People buying computational resource and people selling computational resource. So the sellers of the resource are free to set the price anything they want.
No, that I understand. I'm just saying, okay, so I'm just going to use the term DAO or a foundation or something. Yeah. The foundation has to keep the lights on. So AWS is going to ask for a bill and an invoice to somebody or something, whether it's Dreamcatcher Inc. or LLC or what. So what I'm saying is, what is the payback by the mainnet in order to keep the servers running?
The servers are paid for at the point of transactional sale, and they are managed and run by someone entirely separate to this foundation you're talking about. It's a free market where anyone with a computer can turn up and offer it for use.
Okay. Right, but still something. Okay, so we still have to show up with a company badge to Amazon and go, we want to set up a server It's going
to be not Dreamcatcher Inc. If there ever is a Dreamcatcher Inc., it's going to be Troy's Hosting Co. Limited.
What I'm saying is that obviously if you're Inc. of some time or LLC, you get better rates for volume, right? Because volume dictates price. And if we're saying that there's going to be a minimum mainnet launch, right?
Yep.
That company would need to buy the server share that gets the mainnet going. And then as the server demand expands, I'm not sure what that expands into just yet, but as other people come online and start downloading the software and start using it and spinning up their nodes, those nodes are going to be in AWS, right? Or is that going to be another...
It's entirely up to them. I mean, we'll provide the source code and the methodology of running your own nodes on Amazon if you want, but we're gonna personally run some nodes just to keep the mainnet running. The cost of those nodes is covered for at the point of sale. So we actually get paid from the people using them before Amazon sends us a bill anyway, because Amazon bills in arrears monthly. Inversion tokens are traded instantaneously for the computation that you're buying.
Okay. All right.
There's also, I think, if I interpret what you're asking, it's still actually a problem what you're poking at, and it still requires funding because for the initial set of users, someone needs to offer free computation, or free with a big asterisk next to it. So I think that might have been what you were asking about as to how do we pay for that, because we want people to come to the Dreamcatcher website and not be like, enter your credit card to even send a single message. It's like, so paying for that, we'll need some capital, but that's what we want to use the Dreamcatcher's equity model for, where we're saying, put in money, the money's going to go towards front loading these services, and the attribution due back for that is going to be in relation to something like the lifetime value of that user or some other kind of way of showing a royalty back.
Right. Got it. Yep. That's exactly what I was asking. Okay.
All right. So the another question that I think you might have been touching on but didn't ask directly was how to sustain the foundation as a governing body, some governing body of and You mentioned the Dreamcatcher DAO. I think what you mean is the publishers or the maintainers of the software or the ecosystems, the custodians of the ecosystem need to get paid somehow, and that getting paid in token appreciation is weak, and there needs to be some sort of regular fee that goes to the custodians that keeps them alive and make sure they want to stay good custodians rather than doing a rug pull or some other thing, or getting nasty because they're eating ramen noodles while everyone else is making money. Is that?
Yep. That's definitely the right track of that. Okay. So what I was thinking.
Primarily, the the most difficult innovation that we want to bring in Dreamcatcher is this concept of ambient attribution, which is because the inversion currency is designed to be dustless, or have the ability to make a payment that is smaller than the cost of a transaction in it. It does that with a method of doing pattern matching for being able to accumulate many tiny payments. But the point is that every time there's any kind of transaction of the inversion currency, just ignoring what that purchase was for a moment and just considering it a pure transaction, there is a fee that's due to the mainnet to pay for the computing resources. As a portion of that, our model is that a fraction, let's just call it a third for lack of a better number, a third of it goes to what we call a stack fee. And that stack fee is a micropayment that is dispersed instantaneously amongst everybody who ever contributed to making that block production possible. So that would include the people that made various commits to the code that was run to make that particular block. That might include a cut to people who did some of the marketing efforts of the system. It's basically designed so that, in contrast to Ethereum, for example, where my limited understanding of how they fuel the foundation is because they issued the foundation a chunk of stock, Ethereum stock, at the IPO, and the inflation of that stock has been used to allow them to sell it off to get money to pay for things in the foundation. Is that loosely right, according to you?
I don't know the nitty gritty on it, but I'm pretty sure that the foundation's paid for by both token ICO stuff and by shares.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the foundation I'm pretty sure the Ethereum Foundation holds tokens. They're that DAO.
I was referring to tokens as shares.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I'm just saying that. Yeah, the DAO has a treasury.
Yes. Okay. So yep. I think that's a horrendous model for anything but launch, because there's nothing really incentivizing people who come later to get in on it, other than whoever decides to make those payments. And so the key. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to get this point out that we're already seeing this now with the fact that the DAO, if you look at Ethereum as a model, it's a proof of work system, and then the miners are constantly punished for doing work on the system by the DAO, because the DAO complains that the miners are these greedy, grubby bastards, wherein the DAO itself have become more the greedy, grubby bastards and want to move the proof to stake so they can be even more greedy, grubby bastards to hoard stuff. So yeah, and as an Ethereum miner myself, I can tell you that it really ticks me off a lot to see all these changes coming down the pipe that do nothing but just talk about how us miners are always these greedy fuckers who need to like pay our fair share or something like that. I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, I don't have all the fucking tokens. What are you on about, dude? You're the DAO, right? You know? Yeah, the DAO. I mean, it makes me very angry when I see that the fact that the people who are actually doing the work getting backstabbed constantly from these stupid EIPs. The most common theme in human history.
Right. Well, this comes back to hoarding. Like I say, people are hoarders. Governments are hoarders. Foundations are hoarders. They want to hoard. We need to have anti-hoarding mechanisms in the code.
That is the key. That is the key model to this entire thing.
Right. So I mean, so that people who are actually doing work get paid for work rather than
and we want to actually, because of the fact that you getting a slice of every single block is out of our hands, and it's basically down to the quality of your code commit and the quality of the work you do. It sets it up as a great prize, so that I could look at this system and be like, I can see how to improve this blockchain, and I know that if I do, I'm going to earn X millionth of a percent of every block that ever gets made. Currently, there's several trillion blocks being made a day. That equates to an ongoing revenue of blah, blah. So the point is that this micro attribution system is meant to balance out it's meant to ensure that this blockchain has a higher rate of improvement than any other blockchain, because it dawned on us pretty quick that
not just improvement, but participation as well, right? So
absolutely, and that people who missed the IPO can look at this thing and go, hey, you know what? I can actually earn an ongoing royalty stream with my skills here. It doesn't really matter if you're late or early. It matters how good your contribution is.
Right.
So
I'm just saying, I know me and you understand this. I'm just saying this out loud in case a lot of people end up watching this at some point. That this doesn't necessarily mean your contribution to the chain as well. It also, the contribution to the chain can be any data that you bring over and that you digitize or make a derivative of on chain. So if somebody is an artist and wants to make an NFT on Dreamcatcher, they just need to make the art and then go put it on Dreamcatcher, say that's theirs, this is the attribution, this is the chain of custody, this is the provenance, this is where the evidence is that it is mine, and then they can sell it and do whatever they want with it as an NFT, right?
And now what I would imagine is that whilst people would be free to set their own price, there would be a subset of vendors that would also include a stack fee in their sale price of that NFT, whatever it is, and that stack fee would be dispersed with the same rules and mechanisms that the stack fee for making a new block is. And so one of the most intriguing things that the Dreamcatcher allows is airdrops to people that haven't signed up yet. So for example, Scott talks about the evidence field within Ghosts. So I know that Linus Torvalds has a certain GPG key, right? This system allows us to airdrop inversion tokens to Linus, and he can claim them if he simply provides proof in that GPG key. And quite frankly, I think he should get a cut of every single block that we make, because we used his kernel to do so, to develop on, to all this stuff. So the stack fee is intended to go beyond just the code that contributed to the blockchain, but also include the stack that the Dreamcatcher itself sits upon, which is large and often unrewarded.
Okay, so you're talking about the technologies and or software or other code systems that came before it that allowed the Dreamcatcher to exist. Like going back and giving retro attribution to people who contributed to it, even though they may not have realized it.
Absolutely, or they absolutely realized it, but knew that they couldn't be monetized for it, or people who were stolen from, or the list goes on. But basically, this system lets us attribute however we see fit, and our hope is that through a wisdom of the crowds effect, that something resembling fairness will be approached.
Yep.
I'm not. This is the experiment, right? That's the experiment. I'm not sure that's going to work, but what I do know is that a system,
there's only one way to find out.
I know, right? But what I do know for sure is that you cannot conduct that experiment right now, because you do not have a scale invariant dust-free blockchain at the moment. So you can't even begin to do that kind of automated accounting at an energy efficiency level that actually makes it feasible. So
do you know what the dust level now in Ethereum is approaching?
Like hundreds of dollars. What?
No, more like 5. We're talking 5 Ethereum. I've got people that have 5 Ethereum now that don't know what to do because they don't want to pay the fees to move 5 Ethereum. Like, dude, we're to that level. Like, I've got about like $200 or $300 worth of 1-inch tokens sitting on a wallet that I'm like, do I even bother moving it? Like, what do I do, man? Unless this thing moons, like, do I even touch this stuff? Like, seriously, is it worth my time and effort to try and extract these tokens and put them to something more useful, like somewhere on the Binance chain or like Solana?
It was a great experiment. but
Well, I keep telling people, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, Ethereum to 8,000, Ethereum to 10,000." I'm like, dude, without 2.0, Ethereum at 8,000, the EVM is DOSed.
It's over. Yeah.
It's DOSed. It's DOSed. It becomes unusable. Only the rich can play there now. That's done. It becomes an exclusive VIP party. You know?
So I just want to touch on another concept that I hear you mention that we want to upend in the Dreamcatcher, and that is the concept of there being a Dreamcatcher DAO, or a center of the Dreamcatcher, in effect. The market we want to hit is to be the home of DAOs, because Ethereum's killer app, in my opinion, was the ability to make a token raise or make a DAO on Ethereum. That was an absolute game changer. Trillions of dollars poured through it. But we want your project home to be within the Dreamcatcher network. So we want to allow you to, in the Dreamcatcher, set up your own DAO, be compatible with other Dreamcatcher DAOs. You're not necessarily bound by us. Yes, there will be our project, which is a DAO within the Dreamcatcher, will continue to publish software as best it can. We may be overtaken by people that are better at publishing than us, but that's sort of the point. And so you're not really, in Ethereum, you're forced into this one chain to accept the rules of what the foundation sets upon that chain. In the Dreamcatcher, every DAO is actually completely, legitimately independent of any other DAO. So they are their own blockchains, and they can operate as they wish. And so the community that forms doesn't necessarily identify as one DAO. It looks more like the internet.
Well, when I say DAO, I'm not meaning the organization that is Dreamcatcher, i.e. everything under Dreamcatcher and everybody using it. Right. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like I said, I do think of this as electricity and utility. Yeah. Everybody's on the electric lines, right? But we're all doing our own things with electricity in our own space, but we all rely on the electricity being on. Yep. Now, when I say DAO, Dreamcatcher DAO, I'm talking about the person, entity, thing that is keeping the lights on, making sure the electricity is flowing in the proper directions and the polarity is correct, and we're not like frying people's electronics. That's what I mean by the custodial DAO, like the organization that does voting to bring on new versions of core software or tests or whatnot, like whatever that is. I don't know what that is in the future. That would be a vision thing, but obviously there would be some sort of voting involved.
The idea is to be able to make it consumer voted. So like I just know that I'm involved with a whole bunch of governance tokens, a ton of them, and I can give two fucks about voting. Honestly, I always just give my votes to some other guy who's got like the most tokens on the validation network. And I pretty much see that happening here. Like I can tell people that are going to already say, "Hey, if you give me your votes, I'll give you more attribution on the block or whatnot." So, the point of this whole thing is that there is no voting like that. There are no voting tokens anywhere. You can make your own for your own DAO. Go for your life. But in the core Dreamcatcher projects, there will be no voting in that traditional sense. There will only be voting from consumption, where people who are consuming at the point of sale are also casting a vote, where that vote might be apathy, which means I don't have anything to say, keep going. Or it might be there's been a pull request for a change in upgrading this software version. I vote against it, and I just set that flag whenever I purchase resources from the network from anyone. That vote is part of the transaction set of the complete independent network. That's how I want the voting to go. I think it's a big trap to be trying to tokenize voting. You can, I believe, make.
I don't want token votes. That's my point.
I want not tokenized.
No. I'm just saying that there be dragons. That's what I'm saying. Like
big, nasty.
I'm just talking about. I'm talking about more I'm talking about a more authoritarian control flow with trusted actors and authoritative sources with massive amounts of evidence.
I think you're talking about authenticity as opposed to authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, I'm talking about an authorized actor who has authenticity on the network would be a more trusted source of votes per se than just some knucklehead that owns $1 billion worth of tokens.
Yeah. And the whole principle of the core Dreamcatcher projects, I think the term you were using was critical to function or something like that.
Yep. Critical to function.
Critical to function. Yeah, those types of pillars, like the DNS service, like the original hosting service. Those ones we want to run in this vote-free manner, where it's like it's opt-in. The authenticity. One of the main points of the Dreamcatcher is that irrefutable authenticity comes with every action by default. In fact, it's harder to not be authentic than it is to be authentic. So even just you making a tweet about an idea you had for a new way to farm crops, like you instantly get this irrefutable proof of when you said it, that you said it, you can prove it was you, all that comes by default. And so these critical to function services are largely opt-in, we keep publishing them and we hope that the majority will choose to upgrade and choose to follow. There's no force. It's like if we get overtaken by a better version, then so be it. But it's not. This system to flourish. The system needs to be actually free, like genuinely free.
Oh yeah, free. Yep, open source. I got all that. So what you're saying is that the Dreamcatcher core team may be developing the official version of the software, but they may not be the actual version up and running on the mainnet, depending on how other pieces of software come online. Is that what you're saying?
And who chose to use what version? We will always put forwards a version of our own. I hope. I might get hit by a bus. I might get cancer. Who knows? But the point is that
or cancer bus.
Yeah, right. Our principles of this system are no one's in control. You can choose to take our version. We can always prove that it was authentic from us, and hopefully that will carry some weight in the future because people are like, oh, these guys made this thing, so probably they know what they're talking about. But you don't have to take it. You can run in a fork. And if there's a fork, we should watch that really fucking closely and understand why did that gain popularity and participation as opposed to the one that we're promoting.
Right. And then if you look at the fork and the fork is doing well, or it's got some feature that becomes a hit for whatever reason, whether it be like the version of an NFT or whatnot that the protocol doesn't support on the core. Yeah. Maybe we go have a conversation about merging those chains, right?
Yeah. The only thing we'd ever ask anyone is please stay compatible. Like, do whatever you like, but please stay compatible. Like, we believe that the Dreamcatcher is represented by a local minimum. It's the minimum energy to reach the maximum people. And I'm pretty sure there's only one such machine that can do that. We're putting forwards one attempt at being that machine. We are under no illusions that we will be the final machine. I think it's a goal that will be approached so long as you have these fundamental building blocks, of which blockchain is just one of them, internet's one of them, all these types of things.
Electricity, one of them.
Yeah, right. And so it's almost like we are ourselves participants in this great machine that we believe we'll get to somewhere optimum, and that we're trying to get there too. And if everyone else is trying to get there as well, surely we'll arrive. And that anyone who introduces any kind of distortion in that absolute minimum energy should fail because they cost more somewhere.
Right. So like, let's just circle back on a couple of architectural questions that I've been having in my head.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just looking through a lot of documentation. I'm noticing a lot of command line stuff, like lots and lots of command line. Are we saying that Dreamcatcher, when it launches, let's say December, early January, it's going to be command line based infrastructure?
It's both in parallel. Right now, it runs in a command line and it also runs in a GUI in parallel.
Right.
Remember when I came to your house and showed you that thing? It had a command line and a GUI in the same page.
Right. I'm just. This isn't mostly for me. I sign out. This is more for posterity and future reviews. If people start coming online, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to watch some stuff like this to get their heads around what they're seeing and what they're doing. So I just wanted. So in the spec document.
Yeah.
If we start creating it, there would be something in the spec that's saying one of the specs is it has to have a command line, but have to have a GUI that sits on top, right?
I think I might know what you were getting at. We have found that the quickest way to specify what the behavior of the Dreamcatcher system is with a sequence of command line entries. That is highly useful for me building it because I can script those to test that they are behaving correctly. But it should be noted that on top of that command line is always a GUI, and you can choose to only work in the GUI sense if you want. But under the hood, it is a command line, and we are specifying the behavior we want in that because it just seemed like the least amount of information to get the most amount of information across.
Okay, but I mean, I'm coming from the adoption curve that command lines are just going to drive a lot of people away, just by default, like because. I mean, we live in the 21st century and people don't give two shits about command lines unless you're still trapped in Unix somehow and you're on a distro. But I mean, more power for people who love Unix. I learned Unix a long time ago, and I kind of liked it when I learned it. But I'm dyslexic and I can't fucking spell, so command lines suck, and I hate them.
Under the hood, it is a command line, and it's always going to be like that. But I made very sure that on top of it was actually always a GUI, and there's always a standard GUI, but when you make an app, you're welcome to make your own independent fancy GUI that sits on top of it however you like. So the majority of interaction will be GUI-like. There's command line stuff around the documents we have now just because specifying a user story or a workflow in GUI land is you end up in the same place, but it's way sloppier.
Okay. Well, all right. So I just want to bring that up. Two more questions on the coin itself.
Okay.
So what would be the closest equivalent to a protocol coin that we're foreseeing that this coin would have? Like, are we talking ERC20? Are we talking ERC 1155? Like, what sort of protocol would best match Dreamcatcher? I mean, in your head. I mean, it doesn't have to be the right answer now. I'm just saying, like, if in your head, what do you think this would be closest related to? If somebody wanted to spin up a node and start doing stuff in there.
Wait, you talking about spinning up the Dreamcatcher app or transacting in the inversion token?
Yeah, the token.
Transacting in the token would be probably most similar to using DAI.
DAI, okay. All right, and then the on top of that, how many
to transact? Not $50 fucking dollars.
No, I'm just saying. I'm talking about the underlying code, the protocol. Like, what would be it's like if the Dreamcatcher DAO were release a protocol standard saying this is the standard that this token uses. I mean, like, would it be an ERC20 standard, or like you said, the die standard? Like, what standard coin would that be? It was just more of a general, directional question of like.
It would have elements of the ERC20 token. It would have elements of Monero. It would have elements of actual bank transfers, elements of Ripple.
All right. So then I would say that as being an engineer and needing specs and requirements, that would probably be something that I think we need to flesh out in terms of what that initial spec is that we release onto the world, but can obviously change.
I know this isn't really helping you right now. I have what I feel is a pretty clear picture in my head, and I have designed the protocol for the actual chain has sort of been made with this operating in this currency in mind.
All right.
But is it written down? No. Could I answer any question you gave me about it? Probably.
Okay. All right. I mean, well, I'm just saying, even if I am the one that starts that spec, that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
care.
I would very happily answer any questions you have about any of these protocol questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, because even if it's a living document, I just think it's going to help me to get the spec started.
Yeah.
So that's all. I mean, it's obvious.
I probably actually have all the time in the world for answering your questions about protocol that you're trying to turn into a spec. Can I sit down and write a spec myself? No, because I'm writing the code. It seems like a better use of time. That's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, if we have to work in parallel, it is
great.
What it is.
No, that's fantastic for me, right? And I guess the biggest hurdle for me is if I was to write a spec, I always get the feeling like I'm highlighting points that, when someone new comes along and has a read of it, they ask me questions that I hadn't even thought of. So I'd prefer to write it from the point of view of someone asking me questions that I hadn't thought of, as opposed to me attempting to foreshadow or foresee what would be asked, because I'm always wrong about that.
Right. Well, I mean, just to let you know, I'll keep the spec at a high level as possible, and then if we get into the requirements phase, then we'll start worrying about nitty gritty.
Great, man.
Functionality.
That sounds fabulously useful.
Yeah. Okay.
One day you may find that assigning the NFT responsible for creating the spec may pay out well.
It's not that I need to any of that. I'm talking strictly from a security and auditing perspective. I just know that, unless we have a specifications and the requirements, it's going to be very difficult for an outside body to even look at this and make sense of it.
Totally.
Totally. Yes. So I mean, that's where I'm coming. I'm just trying to make an outside firm's job easy. If we ever get to that point where an outside firm takes interest and wants to start looking and start poking around the code, they'll have those documentation and specifications and requirements there, so they can just start putting it through whatever tools and analysis techniques they want to try and interrogate it. So
sounds awesome.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, this was good. Thanks for the convo, man. I appreciate it.
Sweet, dude. Thank you for the questions. I love answering these kinds of questions. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to assume that you haven't yet spotted any fundamental flaws in what we're trying to do here.
In terms of the known knowns, no, I haven't. And the known unknowns, probably not really. The unknown unknowns, I can't tell you.
Well, who can, right? But I more mean like ignoring the technical hurdles, the political hurdles, I guess. The political. I think our hurdles aren't going to be political as much as, like I said earlier, the groupthink, getting past the groupthink. So the political hurdles thrown up because of 400 years of a particular way of thinking will be hard for us. Yes, because what we're doing was we're saying, that 400 years of how capitalism's been running and functioning and everyone's been making a lot of money and all that, isn't that all cool? But yeah, there's a better way, and this is this way, and it's going to be hard to convert people to that mindset without a clear
understanding of
Okay, how many other ways can you think of that are better than capitalism?
Oh, I think like I was telling Scott, I think capitalism is just a small substrate of what you need in order to actually have a more functioning system. If you go with like I always see it from the extremes of the system. So if you have a full communist system, yeah, sure, everybody's great and everyone seems to be getting their basic needs met, but then you're missing out on certain other facets of the society, correct? Like, I mean, I'm not talking about the communism of the ideal communism that was written by Karl Marx and those guys, Lenin. I'm talking about the actual, when the rubber meets the road type of communism, it always seems to descend into authoritarianism. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking. I mean, the type of communism I'm talking about is what's going on in China right now. That's the type of capitalism where it's just in name only, and it's more of just a power grab. It's a way to hoard power. That's it. It's a hoarding mechanism. Capitalism, the same way. At the extremes, capitalism is a hoarding mechanism where people will just use it to hoard resources and political will and power and you name it. So
when you say that this is a better way, does that mean that we are actually in competition with some other ways that are also suitable? Or are we talking about that one day with a lot of refinement and how this avenue is like an optimum?
I think we're in a local optimum with this. Now, is there another system that works better than this? I don't know, but I know that we're in a local maximum.
Yeah, we're definitely local, and the only way we're going to get out is to get more people.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know if I told Scott on one of those conversations, but I don't have, you know how libertarians have like a 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional axis?
Yeah,
like, you know, freedom of money and freedom of your person. Yeah. Well, actually, I have a third axis, which is like, you know, the don't be a dick axis. Because if you're a libertarian and you're a complete cunt, then you're just going to be stuck on that plane for the rest of your life. But if you grow up out of the axis and you're like not just a dick, but you're more altruistic and you have certain libertarian tendencies, but then you want to see society succeed at the same time as you want to succeed and all this other stuff, and you have a more we can all do this sort of attitude, then I think you start blossoming out as a human being and as a successful person and as just a good person to be around in society in general. So like I said, my political spectrum is 3-dimensional. I think 2 dimensions, even that, is just severely lacking in terms of behavior. I mean, the behavior of people.
Those are the things I worry about. I'm like, okay, this sounds great, but are there other systems out there that we haven't heard of? Is there some fundamental flaw? Until then, you know, let's just keep. I just figure, I know that the experiment is coming. Let's just see.
Well, I mean, this is the third way, and we won't know until it's put live. I mean, Starbucks didn't know if their third space was going to be a hit, right? Until it was a hit, right? So people don't necessarily know what they want until they want it, you know?
Yeah, true.
So I mean, you know, like, so, you know, no one thought there was ever anything other than just your home and work until Starbucks showed up, and all of a sudden, wait, you can go and hang out somewhere and drink a coffee? Like, what? So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's about getting past that mindset of, hey, we're stuck here, and this is the way we've always been doing it for 400 years. Why should we change now? Like, well, no, because we should change now because time and time again we've been seeing over and over and more often that the system is broken at a fundamental level. Like at a very atomic level, it's broken. And since governments around the world refuse to change the system, they just keep kind of patching it and putting little duct tape here and there. Yeah. It's bound to fail again, and it's going to get worse and worse as more and more of these happen, and they happen more often. You know, up until 2008, when was the last crash that you could remember?
Dude, like, fucking, I was a child when it happened. Like, I was fucking in primary school when the last crash happened, and then fucking GFC hit, and then it seems like it's a fucking quarterly event, like the Olympics is sort of less frequent than a financial crash. Right,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it's happening at least once a decade now. It used to be once every 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, the last biggest crash that I can remember, the one that's like that China looks a lot like, is the Japanese one in the late 80s. I mean, that's where China's headed right now with their real estate sector. You know, where I can't remember where it was. Like Japan was, I think they had like $2 million a square foot real estate at one point, like in Tokyo. If you Google it at some point, look up Tokyo real estate bubble. It's like right around 1989. There's this huge, massive bubble where real estate in Tokyo was just insane, like worse than anything we could see today. Like Hong Kong, you name it, was like it's all little tiny specks on the graph compared to how it was in Tokyo. And then that all crashed. And then Tokyo's never recovered. I mean, Japan's never recovered. They're still in deflation. They've never recovered from that crash ever.
Shit.
To this day, they're still in deflation from that crash. So, I mean, just saying that, I think that's where China's probably going to be heading soon too, if they don't.
Well, we better
react
get up and running before that.
Right. So.
Okay, I better run. But
Okay.
Thank you for the time. Speak to you again soon, I hope.
Yep, I'll be on with Scott tomorrow night. So.
Okay, sweet. I'll try pop in. Unless you guys want to just focus on something rather than.
Yeah, I always want you there, man.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you later.
Later.